What if one of the most enjoyable foods on the planet was quietly protecting your brain this entire time? Researchers at Iowa State University ran one of the largest nutritional brain studies ever conducted, tracking over 1,700 people across 10 years. And when they analyzed the data, one food stood out above everything else as the strongest protector against cognitive decline. It wasn't kale. It wasn't blueberries. It wasn't some expensive superfood. It was cheese. Now, before your doctor's voice pops into your head, warning you about saturated fat, stay with me, because the full picture here is a lot more nuanced and a lot more exciting than you might expect. The science behind this is genuinely surprising, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what the research says, which types of cheese matter most, and how much you'd actually need to eat. The dementia problem, why this matters so much. Let's start with why this matters so deeply for so many of us. Dementia is not a single disease. It's an umbrella term for a group of symptoms affecting memory, thinking, and the ability to perform everyday tasks. Alzheimer's disease accounts for roughly 60 to 70% of cases. And right now, more than 55 million people worldwide are living with dementia. That number is projected to nearly triple by 2050. Here's what makes this so personal for people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. The changes in the brain that eventually lead to dementia often begin 15 to 20 years before any symptoms appear. That means the choices you make today, including what you eat, may be influencing your brain health in ways that won't become visible for decades. That's not meant to frighten you. It's actually the hopeful part, because it means there's a window, a real meaningful window, where diet and lifestyle can make a measurable difference. And that's exactly what the Iowa State study was designed to investigate. The research. What scientists actually found. The Iowa State University study, published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, used data from the UK Biobank, one of the largest health databases in the world. Researchers examined dietary habits and cognitive performance across more than 1,700 adults between the ages of 46 and 77, over a decade. They were looking for which foods, if any, had a protective effect against fluid intelligence decline. Fluid intelligence is your ability to reason, solve new problems, and think flexibly. It's one of the earliest cognitive abilities to decline with age, and it's considered a reliable early marker for dementia risk. What they found was striking. Cheese was the single most protective food against age-related cognitive decline. People who ate cheese regularly, particularly daily, showed significantly better fluid intelligence scores as they aged compared to those who didn't. Red wine also showed up as protective in moderate quantities, specifically about 1 glass per day. Lamb, interestingly, not other red meats, showed strong cognitive benefits as well, and weekly consumption of alcohol in moderate amounts also tracked positively. But cheese was the consistent standout. Across different age groups, different genders, and different overall diet patterns, cheese kept showing up as the most powerful dietary protector of brain function. Now, the obvious question is why? What is it about cheese that might protect the brain? The science why cheese may protect the brain. Scientists have identified several mechanisms, and this is where it gets genuinely fascinating. First, vitamin K2. Cheese, especially aged cheeses like Gouda, Brie, Edam, and aged cheddar, is one of the richest dietary sources of vitamin K2 in the world. Most people have heard of vitamin K for blood clotting, but K2 is a different form with a very different job. Research suggests vitamin K2 plays a critical role in brain health by activating proteins that prevent calcium from depositing in the wrong places, including arterial walls and brain tissue. Calcification of brain vessels is increasingly recognized as a contributor to vascular dementia. K2 helps keep those vessels clear. Second, spermidine. This is a compound that sounds alarming, but is actually extraordinary. Spermidine is a naturally occurring polyamine found in significant amounts in aged cheese, particularly in the rind and in long-aged varieties. Research out of the University of Graz in Austria found that spermidine triggers a process called autophagy, essentially, the brain's cellular cleaning system. Autophagy removes damaged proteins and cellular debris, including the amyloid plaques associated with Alzheimer's disease. Populations with higher dietary spermidine intake have shown lower rates of dementia in observational studies. Third, omega fatty acids and conjugated linoleic acid. Full-fat dairy from grass-fed animals contains conjugated linoleic acid, or CLA, and a favorable ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids. These support the integrity of the myelin sheath, the protective coating around your nerve fibers, and reduce neuroinflammation, which is now understood to be a key driver of cognitive decline. Fourth, the gut-brain axis. Fermented cheese contains live bacterial cultures. In other words, natural probiotics. The connection between gut microbiome health and brain health is one of the hottest areas in neuroscience right now. A diverse, healthy gut microbiome produces short-chain fatty acids and neurotransmitter precursors that directly influence brain function and mood. Fermented dairy appears to support that ecosystem in ways that ultra-processed foods actively destroy. So when you look at all of this together, K2, spermidine, anti-inflammatory fats, and probiotic activity, you start to understand why cheese might be doing something real and meaningful for the aging brain. Which cheeses matter? Now, not all cheese is equal here, and this part matters. The cheeses with the strongest evidence behind them tend to be aged hard cheeses, Gouda, Parmesan, Cheddar, Gruyere, Manchego. These are highest in vitamin K2 and spermidine, especially the longer they've been aged. Brie and Camembert, despite being soft cheeses, these have notable K2 content and contain active probiotic cultures. If bought with live rinds, Edam and Emmental both are strong sources of K2 and have been specifically highlighted in spermidine research. On the other hand, heavily processed cheese products, cheese slices, and cheese spreads tend to be low in these beneficial compounds and high in sodium and additives. Those are not what the research is pointing to. The sweet spot based on the research appears to be roughly 1 to 2 ounces, around 30 to 60 grams of real aged cheese per day. That's about the size of 2 to 4 dice. Not a huge amount, not a wheel of brie at midnight. Just a consistent, daily small portion as part of an overall balanced diet. The nuance. What about saturated fat? Here's the fair and honest part of this conversation. Cheese does contain saturated fat. And for decades, dietary guidelines told us that saturated fat was a primary driver of heart disease, and therefore something to minimize. But that view has been significantly revised in recent years. The current scientific consensus, including a major 2020 meta-analysis in the European Journal of Epidemiology, suggests that dairy fat, unlike industrial trans fats, does not appear to increase cardiovascular risk and may actually be neutral or mildly protective in the context of a whole food diet. That said, individual responses to saturated fat vary. If you have existing cardiovascular disease, familial hypercholesterolemia, or your doctor has specifically advised you to limit saturated fat, this is not permission to ignore that advice. Always work within your personal medical context. The broader point is that the blanket fear of cheese as a dangerous food is not well supported by modern evidence, and the potential cognitive benefits, particularly for people in their 50s and beyond, appear to be meaningful. So here's what the science actually says. Eating real, aged cheese regularly, particularly 1 to 2 ounces daily, is associated with significantly better cognitive performance as we age. The mechanisms include vitamin K2, spermidine-driven autophagy, anti-inflammatory fatty acids, and gut microbiome support. The Iowa State study, backed by one of the world's largest health databases, found cheese to be the single most protective dietary factor for fluid intelligence. Is cheese a cure for dementia? No. But as one consistent, enjoyable part of a brain-healthy lifestyle, the evidence is genuinely promising. If this gave you something real to think about, or something real to put on a cracker, hit the like button and subscribe. We cover the actual science of healthy aging every week in plain language. And drop in the comments. What's your favorite cheese? I'm curious, and honestly, I just like talking about cheese.